The Native American people have lived in this land for about 10,000 years. And the Cherokee and the Creek had a lot of interactions, and sometimes they were not so good. And so when they got into a big fuss fight or something, they would play a ball game, and this ball game was called stickball. It was the forerunner of lacrosse and one of the roughest games in the whole world. And at one point in time, the animals and the birds were not getting along, and so the Cherokee people asked the animals and the birds to choose their teams and to play a stickball game and settle their arguments. And so the old bear was captain of the animals, and he began to choose the meanest animals he could find, of course. He chose the mountain lion and the bobcat and the squirrels and the rabbits and the skunk because he had a secret weapon. He chose right on down to the foxes and all the other little creatures, the possum. And he thought he was finished. He thought he had one of every family in the forest. When all of a sudden there was a tiny little voice that came out of nowhere, and he looked down and saw this little mouse about this big sticking his head up through the leaves. And so he walked over to the mouse and asked him what he wanted, and the mouse said, "I want to play." And the bear said, "You're too little. I don't want you on my team." And this really hurt the mouse's feelings, and he begged the bear, and the old bear kicked him, and he went tumbling through the leaves. And when he finally got up, he said, "If you don't want me, I will go play for the birds." So he went looking for the eagle, and when he found the eagle, he came to him and said, "Mr. Eagle, can I play for your side? Because the animals don't want me and the bear kicked me." So the eagle said, "Sure you can." And the mouse was so very happy, and the eagle looked down at him and said, "Can you fly?" And of course the little mouse just sort of melted. He started walking away, and the eagle looked at him and he said, "Godzawiktin, Giste Justin," which means, "Where are you going, little mouse?" And the little mouse said, "Well, I don't have wings, so how can I fly?" And the eagle looked at him and said, "That's okay, because we can make you some wings." So they got some sycamore bark, and they had the woodpecker to make holes around the edges of it, and they sewed it behind the front legs of the little mouse. And they threw him up in the air, and he practiced a long, long time, and finally he was able to fly. The next day was time for the ball game, and when they got out there and they threw the ball up in the middle of the air, in the middle of the field, the mouse would fly through and steal that ball so quickly that no one else got to touch it that day. He won the ball game by scoring 12 points for the birds. And at the end of the game, the bear was really, really angry. And he told the animals and the birds that that was not a fair game because the mouse was really an animal. But the little mouse said, "Mr. Bear, you had your chance and you didn't choose me." And if we look up at night in the fall and the spring and the summer, we'll see this little mouse flying around even today. And so the Cherokee say, that's how the bat learned to fly. And the moral of the story is that we should never leave out those little people, or those who seem to be a little bit different than the rest of us, because we may be leaving out the best player of all, skiing. Thank you in Cherokee.